What?
Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome. Yo, what is going on? Welcome back and welcome into week 18, Cashing Points, regular season finale show with a great crew. I'm joined tonight by Jake Tribbey and our guy HiLow from our sister site OWS 1 week season. Boys, week 18, we made it. We got a 13-game main slate to kind of break on through here. It's gonna be a fun show. Lots of murky running back situations, lots of really murky quarterback situations. Jake, we've been looking forward to this all week. Week 18 is always a lot of fun for DFS, and I think we have a good edge this week. How you doing, man?
Oh, doing great, man. Should be a fun week. Reminds me a little bit of like a spring football week one where we are taking some guesses here on some rotations, but I think there are some really fun edges this week.
Yeah, I'm all in favor of not just week 18, but like more quarterback rotations. If you don't have a good quarterback group, like play two of them. Like, why not? Get weird. HiLow, how you doing, man? Fun week 18 on tap. You had a little bit of a sweat last week, but got neighborsed. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
that was rough. I was in like top 70 until the end of that Giants and Colts game, and then the Colts decided that they forgot how to tackle. I don't know, it was weird.
Colts did not want to play defense or play football last weekend. That was very clear. See if they want to play football this weekend. We'll get started here, guys, with Giants and Eagles. Obviously, no Jalen Hurts, no Kenny Pickett for the Eagles. It'll be Tanner Key under center. Drew Lock just had one of the best games in NFL history by passer rating efficiency, basically because the Colts, like we were just talking about, didn't want to play football.
On slants and outs.
Yeah. It was unbelievable. It was like the Josh Gordon play from 2013 over and over again. Just nobody wanted to tackle. Let's get into this game, though. Will Shipley, HiLow, I think, is probably one of the biggest decision points on this slate. He's 4,600 on DK. He's basically stone min on FanDuel. We'll probably see a little Ken Gainwell, maybe a little bit. It'll mainly be the Will Shipley show. What's your read? I mean, he's going to be mega chalk. We have him at 35% in our ownership projections on the site. I think he's probably going to push 40 to 50% single entry stuff for sure.
Yeah. So the thing with these, like the biggest thing we need to keep in mind is incentives are an individual thing. And then like players not playing is not just that player not playing. So like Jalen Hurts isn't going to play. This team also has 3 veteran banged up offensive linemen that are probably not going to play as well. So while like the structure of the team, how they're going to approach the game is going to be a little different because of the personnel available, but it's also like, it's the same coaching staff. It's the same mindset. They're going to approach trying to win a game as normal, but like there are so many changes this week that it's not just like, oh, Saquon Barkley's out and his backup Will Shipley should see a ton of usage and he's 4,600. We're going to see an exorbitant amount of ownership on running backs that are priced below like 5,500 this week. So like just going in like 90% of the field is going to be building with one of these guys. So there's really, from a theoretical perspective, you have to think like, I have a decision point to make right now at running back. It is, do I try and find the guy down here that is going to end up as the highest scorer of the sub 5,500 running backs? Okay, that's one way to approach it. Another thing is to just say like, fuck all of them. I'm not going to play any of them. Like, like, pardon the French, but like, that's a decision point that I think a lot of people aren't going to be thinking about this week. There's a similar decision point at tight end this week. And it's like, instead of like saying, I know, or I can predict who the cheap running back is that's going to score the most points, like we can go a different direction. So while like Will Shipley is fine, he's highly unlikely to like win you a tournament. He's only going to keep you on pace if he does what everybody else thinks he's going to do. So I don't know, man. Like I'm okay just saying like, yo, do you guys have fun with your Shipleys and your Blake Corums, and I'll be up there like chilling with like Bijan Robinson and Jonathan Taylor and Bucky Irving and like the guys that can put up like 30 fantasy points. It's kind of just how I'm seeing this slate. So to answer your question, how I see Will Shipley, I think it encompasses like all the other guys down here too.
Right. If you're playing Shipley, especially on FanDuel where he's men, you have to do it with a plan in place. Like, for example, I mean, paying up for Jaden Daniels and trying to be contrarian in other places, I think you can do it. It's just maybe the only good thing, Hilo, about all of their pieces being out is they won't push. They won't do the push without Juergens. They won't do, without their offensive lineman. If they do get inside the 5, I think that might be the only good thing for Shipley. But I'm kind of with you. Jake, what's your read here on this Eagles backfield and on this game at large? I mean, 37.5 total. Giants are starting Drew Lock. Eagles have none of their starters, and they're still 3-point home favorites.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with Shipley. I think, to Hilo's point, if you are going to play him, I would just be very conscious of the way the rest of your build looks so you don't end up in the same spot as everyone else. I do think Tanner McKee is a little bit interesting here. I mean, Graham, you noted you don't think they'll tush push. I still think it's possible that they could. Either way, McKee threw for 54 yards, 2 touchdowns on just 4 pass attempts last week. Mike Renner actually called him the most underrated quarterback prospect of the 2023 draft alongside Tank Dell and Brenton Strange at their respective positions. There could be a little bit of juice here. My big issue with McKee, though, is that stacking him just feels really difficult. I do not know how to price this Philadelphia wide receiver rotation. So, maybe like a naked Tanner McKee in a 150 set I'd be okay with. Could throw in some Johnny Wilson. Beyond that, I have some interest in Malik Neighbors on the Giants side of this game. I mean, leads the position in expected fantasy points per game. It's averaging the highest first read target share in fantasy points data history. Again, on a 150 set, I might throw out 3 to 5 McKee lineups, bring it back with Neighbors, maybe try to stack him on a couple of those. It's thin, but I do see a little bit of potential upside here, especially just given the large unknown that sort of is this Eagles offense.
Yeah, it's just so hard to stack. I mean, I can't play Jahan Dotson. He's going to do his 80% route share, but get 2 targets. Neighbors thing, man, it's tricky. Like, I'd much rather play BTJ, and I think everybody's going to have FOMO after missing on the Neighbors game, and it was fluky. I mean, he housed a screen. Hilo was just saying that, he was, housing, basically on a play where they didn't tackle. I mean,
he scored 1 screen and 1 3-yard out from 60 yards. Like,
I'm not. Yeah.
What?
I mean, Neighbors has basically been, 5 for 60 all season. Whether he gets a touchdown, it's kind of whether he pops or not. I'm going to be going back to BTJ there at the top. I don't really have much else on this Giants side, to be honest with you all. I think that's really kind of it. Tyrone Tracy's not in play. I don't think he's just getting, pulled at the goal line. All right, we'll keep it going. Chicago Bears at the Green Bay Packers. Totals 41. Packers are still 10-point favorites. A little bit of tricky motivation to kind of suss out here. Hilo, you're the resident Packers fan, so I want to get your take on it. But Packers are stuck right now as a 7 seed. They need Washington to lose to get to that 6 seed. Obviously, they would much rather, not go to Philly. However, they both play in the same window, or same 1 p.m. window. What do you see as the Packers game plan here? Do we get a full game of love? What do you see for Jacobs' workload? Walk me through this Packers spot because they're pretty tricky, I think.
Yeah, they are. I don't think so. I don't think we see a full game out of the primaries. It's like if you're, and I think this stems from Matt LaFleur being so analytical. He's very analytical based. Comes from the Shanahan coaching tree, and if you just said, what are the chances of Washington losing this week? Okay, what are our chances of winning, and multiplied those together, you'd probably get a number that's probably around 15-20%, which is probably the likelihood of them escaping the 7 seed. So I don't think that it the juice is worth the squeeze personally, if I were in his position. So I can't I have no idea what he's been considering going through. That's just what I get based off beat reports, based off of kind of rumblings around the team this week. To where it just feels really, really risky to me.
Agreed. And they could scoreboard watch too. I mean, if Washington's up 2 scores at half on Dallas, which by the way, that spread has moved. Washington is now 6.5-point favorites. They were at 5. Dan Quinn's been saying they're going to go all out. So it really does seem like Green Bay is probably stuck here. Mm-hmm. In which case I'm with you. We probably might see a little Malik Willis in the 4th quarter. Yeah, I think the biggest risk is Jacobs, Tribbey. That's for sure. It's just what's the point of kind of trotting him out? He's already got the unbelievable season in the bag. What say you on Packers and walk me through this Bears side? Because I mean, Caleb Williams, even though he's a train wreck to watch, he has popped for some 20-point games. And I mean, I don't know if I really see it here in this spot, last game of the season, but there is a little bit of upside to Bears, I think.
Yeah, I'm with Hilo on the Packers side. Just feels a bit too risky for me. I mean, Jacobs himself said he's not expecting a significant workload here. Something like 2 touchdowns and 70 yards isn't going to win you anything on a slate that has Bijan Robinson in basically a perfect spot at a comparable price. On the Bears side, I mean, this is kind of tough for me. Caleb Williams, like you said, Graham, I mean, he can definitely pop, and at basically no ownership. The stacks pretty easy to make with either DJ Moore, Keenan Allen can play both of them. Maybe mix in a little O'Doomsday. I think it's viable for tournaments, but man, it really doesn't get me excited compared to some of these other spots that we have. I guess I'm leaning it's okay, but just not excited about it.
Yeah, implied total of 15.8 points in Week 18. When you're below the Titans, you're below the Jags, you're below the Rams. Starting Garoppolo, it's a pretty thin play. But yeah, I mean, Williams scrambles a little bit. Moore and Allen are the 2 condensed guys, but I'm with you. There are better quarterback plays on the slate. We'll keep it going. Best play on the slate here, Panthers and Falcons, is Bijan Robinson. I mean, Hilo, we're going to be walking to the 30% ownership. I think everybody's going to be wanting to play Bijan, but it definitely feels like he's one of those guys at running back who can put the slate completely out of reach here. Obviously, nut spot, 8.5 point home favorites, 48 total. I don't really think there's not much more that needs to be said beyond Bijan. Hilo, I got to ask though, man, you got any interest in Penix? Any interest in Falcons stacks to get a little weird, or you just playing Bijan?
I think I'm just playing Bijan.
Okay.
I mean, we could continue to talk about all the reasons why. I don't think we need to get into all those. But like, so I have been anti Bijan from a DFS perspective the entire season. If you were to tell me in week 1 that Bijan Robinson would be $100 less than Saquon Barkley, well, maybe in week 5 after like Saquon had his crazy breakout, that he would be $100 less than Saquon Barkley in week 18, like remove Saquon's not playing and all that stuff. I would have said like, you're absolutely crazy. Saquon Barkley, 6 games, 29.7 fantasy points or more. Bijan, 1 game more than that. So like you've been paying all this exorbitant salary for Bijan Robinson's floor all season. So I've been off the train all season. But we have to take it into context of like what this slate is. And we're probably going to see fewer 30 plus fantasy point scores. We're probably going to see fewer 25 plus fantasy point scores. So the players that have those outcomes within their range of outcomes are that much more important to us. So instead of saying like Bijan is crazy overpriced for his role in this offense and whatever, we can just say like Bijan has 30 to 35 point fantasy upside in this spot, and that is extremely valuable on this slate. And that's kind of how I'm just seeing it. So like, I'm not going to fight against it. I'll play Bijan. I'll pair him with another expensive running back and just like, you can do whatever you want for the rest of the way. The one thing that was interesting to me at the beginning of the week is like, was the primary 2 Falcons pass catchers, because we've seen Drake London's ADOT increase with Michael Penix under center. We've seen Darnell Mooney's ADOT increase with Michael Penix under center. Kirk Cousins attempted like 9.5% deep ball throw rate, which was 43rd in the league. Michael Penix is like a much more respectable 11 point something. I forget the exact number. So they're attacking a little bit more downfield. They're able and capable of pushing that. But then like this Falcons team, they're still amongst the league leaders in rush rate over expectation. Yep. If they're controlling a game environment, they're going to give their backfield like 40 carries. What is also different about that with Bijan for me this week is at the beginning of the season, before their rush rate over expectation numbers went crazy, they were saying like, we can just give Tyler Algier 9 to 12 carries. And that dented Bijan because they were running the football 35 times. So Bijan didn't have like 22 plus opportunity upside within his range of outcomes. That's different after like the midpoint of the season. Like Tyler Algier can still get his like 9 to 12 carries. Bijan has 22 or more opportunities in 5 straight games. So I think like his floor is locked in. He's got immense ceiling, the outside zone run stuff that the Panthers struggle against, all these good things. It's like, yeah, I'm just playing Bijan here.
I'm with you. I mean, he projects amazing. And like you said, like you've been saying this whole show, I mean, there's some pretty good receiver plays. We'll get to him in a few games to get to Bijan where you need to. Jake, do you have any other thoughts here on this game? I mean, Thielen's now 6,200 on DK. He's way too cheap on FanDuel still. I've been playing him on FanDuel a little bit the last couple of weeks. Beyond that, man, I mean, they're going to play Miles Sanders in this backfield. Really, it's just, I think Bryce and Thielen. I'm a little interested in some Bryce Young stacks with Bijan and Thielen. Bryce has a little bit of scrambling upside. Obviously, Falcons secondary stinks. And I don't really think anybody's going to be on Bryce. He's super easy to stack, but I don't know, man. It does feel thin, though. I mean, Bryce just does not have a humongous ceiling. What's your thoughts on Panthers?
Yeah. Wanted to echo what you said. Adam Thielen and Bryce Young, both way too cheap on FanDuel. When it comes to just DraftKings, though, I think probably the best argument for playing Bryce Young is this is the best game environment of a slate full of awful game environments, and he's going to have to throw here. I'm not really in love with the play from a pricing perspective, especially the stack, given that Thielen's pretty expensive. But yeah, I think with Bijan, totally viable. I'm sure that's something I'll have a little bit of.
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason I'm a little more into it. It's like, we've been looking at Bryce Young on DK at least at 47, 52 all year, and now he's 58. This is a slate where pricing is not super tight either, so I feel okay with that. Actually, probably is my favorite way to play this game is Bryce Young stacks with Bijan. If you're obviously stacking, we'll move on here to Saints and Bucks. Bucks 14-point favorites, totals 43.5. Baker just gets there every single week, man. I mean, he's just an absolute machine. HiLow, Mike Evans prop is literally at 101 yards. It has just kept going up. I mean, I think Evans is going to be the most popular receiver play in a landslide this week. Just kind of comes down to how much they have to push here, how much Spencer Rattler pushes them, how much the Saints offense that's been just dreadful pushes them. But I mean, Baker is just on fire. Evans obviously highly motivated. What's your read on Bucks here, man?
Yeah, so this is the perfect example of like what we're talking about, like weeding through the kind of noise here. Everybody and their mother knows that Mike Evans needs 5 catches for 85 yards and 2 touchdowns for like 3 million plus in its setups. Like we all understand that. So like gone are the days where just like knowing football or like knowing who's playing for stuff gives you an edge. Now the edge is saying Mike Evans already had 5 for 85 and 2 within his range of outcomes in this game. It has been that for the past since he came back from injury. So now, instead of playing him at 5% ownership, we're playing him at 40% ownership. That is an edge this week. So like, I'm not saying like Mike Evans is going to fail to hit his incentives and like the secondary part of that is like, do we think the Bucks care more about getting Mike Evans his $3 million or making the playoffs? It's probably making the playoffs. So incentives are extremely like overweighted their importance right now this time of year. Like this is an NFL franchise. They're going out to win a football game. If Mike Evans gets there, great. They're not going to be like, oh, Mike Evans in triple coverage, man. I don't care. I'm giving him 18 targets so he can get that bag. Like, no, dude, that's not going to happen. So Mike Evans could go out, put up 7 catches for 93 yards, hit most of his incentives and score a touchdown and still not be optimal in GPPs this week because he cost $8,000 salary on DK. So I just want this misconception that like, oh, this team doesn't have anything to play for, or this team does, or this player does. Like that doesn't matter as much as like the entirety of what that team is going into this week. What this team is going into this week is they need a win to make the playoffs. They're probably going to be approaching it business as usual. So that's a plus. But there are many different ways for this game to play out that Mike Evans individually fails. Bucky Irving could go insane. Sean Tucker could go insane. The Buccaneers defense could score 2 touchdowns and limit the time of possession, the play volume, the passing volume, the aggression through the air of the Buccaneers. So like, that's probably my favorite play from this game is the Buccaneers defense, because you get just like all the leverage, man. I'm not saying like, I think this is going to happen. I'm saying like, if we assign it a 10% probability of happening, the field's doing it at 1%. Now I get all this leverage. So like that's how you make the most money when you get things right in DFS. It's not about like knowing football. We all know football by now. It's that like nuance thing there.
The leverage to me, and I've been thinking about it, Baker's arguably one of the 3 best quarterbacks in football right now. You get access to Evans' upside by playing Baker, but Jalen McMillan is going to be 3% owned, and he's 5,100. Payne Durham,
thought too, man.
Yeah, Payne Durham is running a route on every single drop back. He has legitimate touchdown upside. He's 3,200, and no one's going to play. So, I mean, if you just want to play Baker and just say, hey, listen, I mean, Evans is 8K, play Baker with these 2 ancillary pieces. I think that might be one of my favorite ways to play it because, Hilo, you're right. That's probably just what Evans does this week. 6 for 90 and a touch. And, at 8K, that's fine. If you're playing cash, you're thrilled with that. But for tournaments, probably not going to get there. Jake, got any other different thoughts on Bucks? I mean, I don't even think we need to spend time on Saints. They're just a nightmare. Honestly, man, they're just truly a nightmare. It's really just Juwan Johnson, I think, is the only Saint and remotely in play.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the only other angle that I have is that, more than fine and honestly pretty happy to play Bucky Irving with Baker in the hopes, Bucks just roll, drop 40 points. Really like that. It'll be,
you're paying like 24K, I think, if you're playing all 3 of them. So it just gets tough.
Yeah, that's tricky. I think my favorite way to do that is kind of with the stack that Graham outlined, where you're dropping Evans, playing Bucky instead, and then using those 2 ancillary receivers. That could get you
Stones. I mean, that was the Stones last week, and Evans had 2 touchdowns by halftime, and they were like 3-yard plays. So
that was my Millie roster. Baker double.
Hell yeah. I think that's the way I'm playing it this week too. Just playing Baker again, and just trying to get a little funky with these ancillary pieces. Yep. Yeah, I don't think we need to spend any time on Saints, really. It'll be Clyde Edwards-Helaire, baby. Let's go. The resurgence.
I hope he does great. Yeah, I hope he does great.
I hope so too, man. Back in New Orleans, back in his hometown. Just, big F you to, everybody.
All right, this game rings that he has.
Yeah, exactly. All right, this game is really fun. I think Washington goes all out to win. It's Washington 6.5 now. Cowboys, 6.5. Total's 44. Obviously, Cowboys just got completely rinsed. Mike McCarthy's coaching for his job, Jake. But like Jane Daniels is full go. He's very, very simple to stack between McLaurin and Zacchaeus. I don't know. I mean, Jane Daniels has basically been the QB1 since he's returned since, that injury 4 or 5 weeks ago, 32, 28, 23, 36, and 36 on DK. If you're telling me we're going to get 4 quarters of Jaden Daniels, they're pushing to actually win. I mean, he has a humongous ceiling here. Walk me through Washington and what you're seeing from this game, dude.
Yeah, man. I mean, absolutely love Jaden Daniels this week. I think, pretty easy to stack with Zacchaeus. You can throw out McLaurin, although McLaurin, I think especially is a guy who I would really only play within Daniels stacks. It's hard to see him getting there without Daniels getting over the top 2. Zach Ertz, also pretty solid, 13.2 DraftKings fantasy points per game over his last 6. That would rank 4th best among tight ends on this slate. He's had a pretty unsustainable touchdown rate over this stretch, but, still 24.25 implied team total for Washington. I know Ertz has some incentives potentially too. Dallas side of this game, I think, is really interesting. We did just get some news that Trey Lance is expected to play a bit tomorrow. I was pretty excited about potentially Kevontae Turpin. 61% route share for him last week, which was the career high. But if Lance is under center, I mean, I don't want anything to do with this Dallas offense. I would also pretty notably hurt Rico Dowdle, who's potentially in play on the Dallas side. Could take away some goal line carries, some rush work overall. Hilo, I'm not sure if you have a read on a Dallas offense that may or may not be playing a decent bit of Trey Lance this week.
Yeah, stay away. That's my read.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very disappointed, man. I'm the biggest Kevontae Turpin fan. I was ready to jam him in.
But... Yeah, that's your boy.
I know.
Would you? Why don't they should just MVP. Bro, they should just make him their Tank Dell next season. I mean, there's no reason not to. Just give the guy full-time route share.
Get Brandon Cooks out of there.
Please.
I mean, Trey Lance is so bad that they haven't even trotted him out in this clear scenario where they've been dead since week 10. So Yeah, I'm with you. Pretty much just stay away, and it definitely hurts this game for sure. And this 6.5 Washington is probably about to turn into 8-9 overnight with that news. I don't really think we need to spend much more time on this game. I think Washington side is super easy, and now Dallas, man, I'm kind of with you. Just scrolling through, making sure we didn't miss anything. All right. Jags and Colts. Colts 4.5 point favorites. Totals 44 here. It'll be Joe Flacco under center. Anthony Richardson is actually injured. Flacco kind of got there. Yeah, surprise. Yeah. Yeah. A-Rich on IR. It's like peanut butter and jelly, basically. Joe Flacco was terrible last week. Still got there, though, HiLo. I mean, he threw for 330 and 2 touchdowns. It was obviously just a complete, insane, everybody scores game script. This week won't be the same. It's Mac Jones. It's Jags. I don't know. I mean, Flacco is super easy to stack in the sense that all these dudes are 5K. But I kind of like Alec Pierce the most again out of this group, especially for a big play. He's not going to draw any ownership again. Downs is not going to be 30% like he was last week, obviously after flopping. But super interesting game. What's your read here on Colts, HiLo? Because I mean, JT has a huge ceiling, but the Colts are dead. Flacco is obviously super easy to stack. What do you think?
Yeah, so we just have to look at this is 2 different teams based on the quarterbacks that have played. With Anthony Richardson under center, they ranked 32nd by a lot in rush rate over expectation. That drops to 19th in the league in pass rate over expectation with Joe Flacco under center. This is also a team that has allowed 35.3 points per game over their last 3 games against the Giants, the Titans, and the Broncos. So they have mailed it in. I would not be surprised if we see, oh God, what's off defensive coordinator's name? Gus Bradley. I wouldn't be surprised if Gus Bradley is the first name fired this offseason. Like when the game ends, whistle blows, like Gus, dude, pack your shit. So all of that though, like now that they're at least neutral in pass rate over expectation, we look at like Joe Flacco's pass attempts in his games that he started. Hold on, I just had it up. Let me pull it up again. He's passed 44, 38, 27, 35, and 38 times. So there is some juice here. This is probably my favorite game of the slate, to be honest. We have a good idea of how these teams are going to behave. Like the Jaguars, it is BTJ and everybody else. It's just BTJ. He has been top 3 receiver in almost every metric you look at in games started by Mac Jones this season. So you can just say like, okay, well, that's my starting point. I can attack this game through Brian Thomas Jr. And then you can do a lot of different things with the Colts because Jonathan Taylor, he's a yardage and touchdown back. He should get a little bit more receiving work with Joe Flacco under center, but Joe Flacco over the last couple of years has not been targeting running backs the same rate he did like when he was in Baltimore. So like he's a yardage and touchdown back, but the matchup is pristine. So he could go yardage and touchdown all over the place. And that could be something that you had to have to win this week. I agree, like pass catchers wise, it's Alec Pierce. This is my favorite. It was very weird last week. Josh Downs went into that game having seen 9 targets or more in all 4 of Joe Flacco's previous starts. And then we expected them, based on the game environment, to play more 11 personnel, and they didn't. They kept him at like 61% snap rate. Yeah. So I don't know, man. And like it was the first game all season. Michael Pittman has seen more than 10 targets. It was the first game or the second game where he hit 100 yards. So like I'm not going to Michael Pittman. He's very clearly not fully healthy. He's running like a statue out there. Like I don't know. He looks like late season Ben Roethlisberger to me, like running on a football field right now. Like late career Ben Roethlisberger's. I don't know. There's a visual for you, like what he looks like in a route right now. So it's just, but like what kind of stuck out to me was that like Alec Pierce kind of was the go-to guy like from the jump last week. Yeah, rewatching the tape, like he was seeing kind of these. I think the way Rich Rebar did a show with him, how he puts it is like these smoothing routes where it's like higher confidence targets. He was running slants. I can't remember the last time I saw Alec Pierce running a slant. So that's good. I like Alec Pierce here. I think you can play like BTJ with Jonathan Taylor. I think you can play BTJ with Jonathan Taylor and Alec Pierce. I'm personally not going to Flacco this week. I think there's a little bit more upside, even for cheaper if you want. But he's not a guy that is likely to like win you a tournament. Like I kind of would say like Jaden Daniels is a guy that win you a tournament, Baker Mayfield, maybe Joshua Dobbs even because he's bare minimum. But Flacco's kind of in that like gray zone for me. So I don't think I'm going there this week.
Yeah, I'm with you, but I do want to play some of his pass catchers, especially Pierce. I mean, last week, by first read target share, Pittman at 31%, but he's moving like a plank out there. Then Pierce was at 21%. So I mean, legitimate change in the offense. Jake, beyond that, man, I mean, I don't know. I can't sell myself on any other Jag beyond BTJ. But do you have any other thoughts here on Colts? Because I do think they're one of the top teams to get right. Like I feel pretty strongly that one of these pass catchers or JT or maybe both are going to get there. I mean, JT's just been running so hot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you guys. I think Pierce is my favorite. I am good with stacking Flacco. I think that's something I plan on doing in my own stuff. We'll probably double, rotate Pittman, rotate in Downs, and then play Pierce in almost all those lineups. Also wanted to throw out Mac Jones as just like Galaxy Brain 1% flyer. Drew Lock had one of the greatest quarterback performances we've seen in the last half decade against this defense. Why not Mac Jones, man? Why not?
Yeah.
Said no one ever. No, I'm just
right. Like, I mean, it feels awful. I'll admit it feels awful, but the stack's easy. BTJ, if you want to double, you throw in Strange, maybe Parker Washington. I mean, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the same ceiling as Flacco. Basically, it's like this game just has to score 55, and both teams throw 40 times for these guys to get to 30. But I hear you. I think I'd rather play Bryce Young, honestly, and just say, hey, that game goes absolutely ham. All right, speaking of games that are not going to go ham, I saved these last two games for last of the 1 p.m. window because they're just utter trash. Texans, Titans, this game's been a pick 'em all week. It's flipped back to Titans at 1.5. They're going to play Levis. We might see some Rudolph. Tony Pollard's a game-time decision. Obviously, Texans have no motivation in this game. They are the 4th seed in the AFC South. We might see Stroud for like a half, maybe a quarter, just to kind of get some confidence going into the playoffs. But HiLo, man, I really don't have a whole lot from this game. I think Pollard is a little interesting if he goes, but like, I don't know, man. He's been hurt. No Tyjae Spears. They could play some Julius Chestnut. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to – if Pollard's going to be like 10%, which I don't think he'll be, I'd be a little interested. Beyond that, man, I don't have a whole lot from this game. What's your read?
Yeah, it was Chig Okonkwo or nothing else when I thought that it was Mason Rudolph starting. I mean, Chig averaged 10 targets per 4 quarters played with Mason Rudolph over the last 2.5 games. You're probably not going to see that volume with Will Levis.
Bro, I can't put U.S. currency on a Will Levis team again,
0.
like this season. Again. Like, I can't do it again. I'm not doing it again.
Yeah, sure. But there again, in the chat, Pollard got his incentives to hit. He needs 83 rushing yards for incentives. But it's like this.
Yeah, he also needs 2 touchdowns, I think.
Yeah. He also needs 2 ankles. Like it's been, he has not been healthy for a month now. He practiced once, I think, over the last 3 weeks prior to this week.
Feels trappy.
It feels pretty trappy to me too. So yeah, I'm with you. Like no Titans, and then Texans. Like good luck figuring out what they're gonna do.
Yeah, bro. Literally. I mean, it'll probably be a bunch of Hutchinson and Mechie. I bet those two lead them in routes. And then, I mean, Ogunbowale and Pierce probably split after they pull Mixon in the first quarter or half. Jake, you got any other different thoughts on this game here, man? I mean, is it any interest in Ridley?
Probably not. I mean, it's really tough with Levis under center. I will say Okonkwo didn't practice today, so there is a risk that he could potentially sit this week. So, I mean, you could argue no one's from this game is playable.
I didn't see that.
Gross. Yeah. Oh, man, he late addition, too. He has an abdomen injury. Good call, Jake. Yeah, they're out with Spears is already out. Boyd's already been ruled out, too. So they're going to be razor thin this weekend. Speaking of razor thin, we'll get it out with Bills and Patriots, final game of the 1 p.m. slate. Josh Allen is probably going to take the first handoff to get the start streak, but that's about it. It's going to be Mitch Trubisky under center. Patriots side, May's played okay, but I don't think he's played well enough to like deserve to be like benched. I mean, the rookie should play and he should get reps. It's just this game stinks. The Bills can do the most hilarious thing of all time, though, Jake, and basically punt this game and try to force the Patriots to win so they don't get the number 1 pick. Beyond that, dude, I don't really have much here. I think Ray Davis is a little interesting, but again, this game environment is an absolute egg. What do you say? What do you think, man?
Yeah, I mean, I like Ray Davis too. I think of the sort of, there's a lot of chalky, cheap running backs out there that I'll project pretty well. Ray Davis is sort of in that next tier. I think he's interesting leverage if you do want to pay down. Last time Cook sat out in week 6, Ray Davis turned a season high 20 carries and 3 targets into 152 yards from scrimmage, 18.2 DraftKings points. Obviously Ty Johnson's receiving role has expanded since then, but still think Davis is the guy who's going to see the red zone work in Cook's absence. And I mean, a lot of these backup running backs that we're talking about absolutely stink. Ray Davis is actually decent.
Yeah.
And then my only other note for this game was I think there's a chance, and we were talking with Ryan Heath about it this morning. There's a chance Joe Milton gets some action in this game, which makes Drake May, completely unplayable, and probably all these other Patriots pretty close to unplayable.
Yeah, it kind of makes this game unplayable too. I was kind of into Ray Davis as well, and then we started talking about that, and it's just like, man, the Patriots could completely punt this game as well. So, I mean, Hilo, what do you think of this game, dude?
Same. Yeah, nothing to add, man.
Yeah, I just think pretty much everybody here is a little thin. If we do get a full game of May and like confirmation of full game of May, I think him and Hunter Henry, that is okay. But
meh.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Afternoon window will open. Well, I guess they're all open at the same time. Seahawks and Rams. Seahawks are 6.5-point favorites. Obviously, the Rams are sitting everybody with a pulse for the postseason. It'll be Jimmy G under center. Hilo, I think one of the biggest decision points on this slate is Blake Corum at 5,600 on DK. I think his workload will be fine, but I mean, they do have Ronnie Rivers. They brought on Cody Schrader. They're going to be playing with basically all backups on the offensive line. And meanwhile, Seattle has full motivation to win. They can get a 10-win season. Mike McDonald obviously wants to put good defense tape on after his defense struggled all midseason. I don't know. Corum's fine to me, but he feels a little trappy too on this slate. What say you?
Yeah, man. Did you see his, what he said in response to hey, coach, who's playing in his presser this week? It was like, we're really excited to get Blake Corum, a featured role, but we're really liking what Schrader's put on tape in the practice field. So we're really excited to see him too. And it's like, we're really excited to see this other guy too. He mentioned Corum first, but it was like, he went on this list, this diatribe of all the guys he's excited to see. So this feels very much like a preseason game to me. They're locked into Kyren. Blake Corum is a guy that I think they brought in just to be a guy that if Kyren went down, I don't think they need to run him out and see what they have here. We're evaluating for our future. I don't think that's what this idea is for the Rams this week. They legit want to just count down the seconds to the final whistle. It's what do they have to play for? Nothing. So I don't know, man. This is another spot where it's we have to be real with the risks that are involved with a guy like Blake Corum. If you understand that and you're fine saying I can just differentiate elsewhere and I'm okay playing him at 35% ownership, okay, but you need to have that understanding and that discussion internally. Yeah, dude, neither for me is my answer, but
neither's probably optimal. I mean, you're playing, like Hilo was saying, you're playing Corum into 25, 30, 35% ownership, and Davis is literally going to be 5%. So there's your answer. I mean, it's kind of the same game environments, 2 preseason games. Ray Davis has been better than Blake Corum, so you can make that argument as well. But I think the ownership argument, Jake, is the one for Corum. What say you on Quorum? And I'm pretty interested in Tutu Atwell. He played pretty well in his kind of starting-ish role earlier in the season when Puka Nacua was out. Didn't set the world on fire by any means, but he's 3,800. We saw McVay kind of design the passing game around him. I just have massive concerns that, this is like 35 handoffs and the Rams just get the hell out of there. But what say you, man, on this game?
Yeah, I mean, that's my concern too. I do still have some interest in Tutu Atwell. I mean, he led all Rams wide receivers or tight ends in fantasy points in 3 of their 4 games without Cooper Kupp and Nakua. Could obviously give good notes on Jordan Whittington too. I think there's a interesting argument for Whittington in the sense that Jimmy Garoppolo is a lot less aggressive just overall as a passer compared to Stafford. Whittington runs a bit more underneath routes. He could get peppered with a few extra targets relative to if, Stafford was the quarterback here. Tyler Johnson also in play. He's expected to get a decent amount of routes here, also projects as a strong value. I mean, these 3 wide receivers, I'll sprinkle them throughout my lineups. I think Whittington is probably my favorite overall for GPPs, but I mean, it's hard to take a huge stand on any of these guys because Graham, I mean, like you said, this game environment could be really gross. I think Seattle will have some significant motivation. Geno Smith, JSN, Charbonnet, all those guys look pretty strong to me overall.
Yeah, I don't know though, man. I think those Seattle guys are going over on too. Like, yeah, Gino has the incentive for the 2 million. He has the incentive for the win, but like, I don't know. I mean, Gino's not thrown for multiple touchdowns in how many games? Like, I don't know. It feels like the upside is really lacking, especially when Rams probably aren't going to do anything to push here. So I'm honestly a little surprised to see some of the Seattle ownership, especially for the receivers, be so high. HiLow, what do you think, man?
I just wanted to jump in to say that's fair, but I do think people want to play Geno because the stack's so easy and because, we're sort of assuming the backfield's going to be concentrated around Charbonnet, which I do have some doubts about. Kenny McIntosh has gotten positive coach speak. Still, though, even last week, Charbonnet was at 75% of backfield XFP. So it is an easy stack, and it's something like Optos will push people toward. Hard to argue it's like the best stack relative to upside and ownership, though, for sure.
Yeah.
Curious what you think, HiLow.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I've been down on Seattle getting through my research all week. Like not down, but like not to the level of ownership that they're going to have. And again, I think it stems from like they're going to project well because we can expect them to play the entire game. So they're going to immediately project then better than 70% of the players this week. And then you add in this like incentives things like you look at the list of like the incentives that players can earn, and Geno Smith's name is in bold as like he can earn the most money this week. It's like, oh my God, he's going to be like, we have to play Geno. It's like, I don't know, man. Dude. I don't think so.
When has Geno been the answer this year? I mean,
well, and the thing with the incentive, it's 185 yards. If it was 340, I'd be pretty jacked up. But 185, I mean, what's that going to do for you?
Yeah.
I mean, the dude has thrown multiple touchdowns in a game 3 times this year. So. I don't see him getting pushed to do it in this spot either. I do think Charbonnet is pretty interesting. We've got JSN projected for 25%. If Seattle does go all out to win this game and Charbonnet is a bell cow, like he definitely has 2 touchdown potential and he's 6,700 against Rams backups. So like that quite a bit. Charbonnet right now, Darren, our ownership guy, he's done a phenomenal job this season. We've got Charbonnet at 13-ish. Yeah, 13%.
The other thing with that, just a quick aside about like just saying like Rams backups, they're only allowed so many inactives. And we already have a list of 7 players that Sean McVay has said is not going to play. So that doesn't leave much room for.
Yeah, but is he going to play Verse? Is he going to play, Fisk? Like, I doubt it.
Yeah. And the other thing with their defense is they're all pretty young now. I don't know, just something to think about. Just additional variance.
I hear you. I don't know. I just don't see them risking like actually good players. They'll have some starters out there, but like they're dudes like Verse and Fisk. Those guys probably are sitting here.
Yeah.
All right, Chargers and Raiders. This Chargers team has driven me crazy all week. It really kind of comes down to this Pittsburgh game. Like if Pittsburgh wins, the Chargers don't have anything to play for. Pittsburgh already has the tiebreaker. They beat them in week 3. But if the Bengals come through, they beat Pittsburgh. Chargers should be all out to win this game. I would a bajillion times rather play CJ Stroud than Lamar Jackson. So, I mean, Jake, I mean, it really kind of comes down to that with Chargers. We were talking about with Chris this morning, and I think Chris is just right. If the Steelers do pull off, kind of an upside and beat the Bengals, I'm not sure we see Herbert. Why risk him? You're locked into the 6th seed. It's just one of those things where it's pretty tricky to figure out. This line obviously stinks. 4.5, totals 41.5. If we knew Chargers were full go, dude, they should at least be like 6.5, 7-point favorites, maybe pushing like 8 on the road. This is like a neutral field in Vegas. Just a tough team to figure out. I will say it kind of cleared up. Ladd McConkey off the injury report. So if we do get Chargers, man, Ladd at 6,900 is really fun. What do you think of this game, dude?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you put it best. If Cincinnati ends up winning here, Chargers are going to be in a pretty good spot. Justin Herbert, J.K. Dobbins, Ladd McConkey are all guys I'm going to have a ton of interest in overall. And, this will probably end up being one of my favorite teams to stack. I mean, Herbert at 5,900 feels very, very reasonable. Yeah. We also saw this team really keep their foot on the gas against New England last week, plus 7% P-Row, put up 40 points, just absolutely beat the brakes off the Patriots. And I think you'll see a similar performance here if they actually have something to play for. You could argue that maybe there's a scenario where they have nothing to play for, and Harbaugh is so philosophically opposed to playing these, to resting these starters that maybe they still trot them out. But even then, you wouldn't get the same level of aggressiveness, and probably wouldn't be worth the risk there. But yeah, definitely love Chargers. And I do think, for the most part, these incentive narratives are blown way out of proportion. My favorite incentive narrative this week, I think by far, is for J.K. Dobbins. Granted, it's only for 58 rushing yards. He was guaranteed just $50,000 this year. Yeah. It's $150K with 68 rushing yards. And I believe another 150 if he crosses 200, which, probably won't happen, but
let's go, dude.
Yeah, why not?
Let him go.
I didn't know about the second tier. Yeah. Let's go.
Let him go.
Yeah, exactly.
FanDuel, open up some parlays for us so we can bet this, the over 200 alt line. Yeah. At Chargers, man, I just think it really is that simple high-low. For Vegas, it's like pretty much, it's Bowers, Jacoby. That's kind of it. AOC, is he in play at 5,100? I think we have to have Chargers playing starters for sure. Yeah. What do you think of the Raiders side, dude?
I really don't want much of anything. AOC, like, just looking at his game logs, man, like, no more than 2 passing touchdowns in a game this season. Like, has hit 300 yards once. It's just like this offense would this team did not just become like pass heavy in nature. Like, their identity is still to like grind out games, like run the football. They just have not been able to run the football this year. So they've been forced to pass a little more. So like there's just not a lot of upside for me here from the pass catching core.
The only good note I have is that the Raiders won't have Amir Abdullah, and they would rather call up a dude I've never heard of before, Chris Collier. Apparently Vic Taffer from Raiders Beat said that they're going to bring him up, undrafted guy, to try to play him over Madison. I'm just trying to make a case for Raiders pass rate because then they might not run the ball at all this weekend. Yeah, I don't know. I did see a quote from Joey Bosa before we got on the live stream that Chargers are fully aware of the Steelers game. It seems like Harbaugh has talked to his team. Bosa was saying, like, listen, we might not be out there. I want to be out there even if we have nothing to play for, but definitely seems like that's a point for the Chargers. All right, we'll keep it going here, guys. Dolphins and Jets. This game's a pick'em. Dolphins are slight 1-point favorites. Totals 39. Aaron Rodgers is trying his mightiest to get to touchdown number 500. Jake, he was the worst quarterback in the NFL in a landslide. It was one of the worst performances I've seen from a quarterback all season last week from Rodgers. Yeah, Dolphins starting Tyler Huntley. This game's still a pick'em, dude. Totals 39. What are you thinking from this game? I think Tyler Huntley's a little interesting at 4,800, but like he runs. I don't know if I can say he's any of these dudes are good stacking candidates with Tyler Huntley, but he's 4,800 and runs a little bit. I don't know. This game feels like a preseason game too. What do you think?
Yeah, on the Jets side, the only guy I'd have any interest in is Devontae Adams. Graham, I think you may have missed this. He said it would be dope if he caught Aaron Rodgers' 500th touchdown.
Right.
So Got to keep that in mind when we're making our lineups this week, of course. On the Miami side, I think, the one encouraging note is that last week was by far Tyler Huntley's best game as a Dolphin. And I think maybe they, Mike McDaniel may have figured out a bit of a better way to run an offense around Tyler Huntley. Achane's usage took a bit of a step back, just 10.9 expected fantasy points. McDaniel sort of had some weird quotes about that. So I don't have a ton of confidence there. I think probably my favorite way to play this game, if I am, if I do, it won't be much, would be like a Tyler Huntley, Jonnu Smith, Devontae Adams bring back type of lineup. Tyler Huntley, obviously Jonnu Smith didn't do anything last week, but Tyler Huntley would tie with, forget who it is, or no, he's in first on his own in career tight end target rate among current starting quarterbacks. So he does love his tight ends. And we have seen Jonnu Smith have some big games with Tyler Huntley under center. So that's my favorite stack here, but man, this is a tough game.
Yeah, Jonnu has 5 for 62, 7 for 96 and 1. He had 3 for 26 and 1 last week and 3 starts with their backup. So, he's been fine. Yeah, I'm with you. Huntley got some designed rushing stuff, which was what kind of piqued my interest a little bit. The designed carries last week, as you were saying. McDaniel's kind of figured out this, how to design an offense. I mean, I don't know. He got 5 design carries last week. Hello, what do you think of this game, dude?
I'm just thinking about the next game we're about to talk to.
I
really don't like this game at all.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. All right, let's talk the next game. Niners and Cardinals. Josh Dobbs week, baby. Let's go. He's 4K.
Nuke him,
Stone
baby.
Man. Is Josh Dobbs a trap, Hilo? That's my question.
I don't know if he's as much of a trap as some of the running backs we've talked about.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, this is a guy that, I don't know, man. He has a little bit of rushing upside. He's bare minimum salary. He was college teammates at Tennessee with Juwan Jennings. He targeted Juwan Jennings on 3 of his 4 pass attempts when he came into the game last weekend. And we have Deebo Samuel that's been ruled out. And we have, they're trying, I think, to figure out what they got in Ricky Pearsall after he got freaking shot this off season. So with Deebo out, with George Kittle is questionable. He has a hamstring issue. I think it's multiple things. I think it's hamstring and knee, maybe.
Yeah, he's beat up.
Double check that. He is beat up. But this is let's see what we got, man. Deebo is aging. We've put him through the ringer. We might have to move on, dude. He's getting beaten down. We have Brandon Ayuk, who just signed the bag, forcing the issue here. This might be a let's figure out what we got with Ricky Pearsall, with Juwan Jennings. They re-signed Juwan Jennings also before they re-signed Brandon Ayuk, and Isaac Rendo. So all 3 of those guys could be primary skill position players for an offense that's really, I don't think they're going to give up or negate this game. Same thing in the Cardinals on the other side. They played the Rams to a tough game. So I don't know. Divisional opponent, end of the season, both of these teams are out of contention, but they still have stuff to figure out. The Cardinals, they're an absolute mess. We've been talking about it all season. They're very clearly they need to take this game seriously to figure out what the trajectory of their franchise looks like. So I don't know, man. I really like Joshua Dobbs doubles. I think the game environment can be something we can get excited about. I think you can just run Dobbs at bare minimum salary, Ricky Pearsall at 4.1, Juwan Jennings at 5,800. You get this 3-player stack and you can do whatever the hell else you want. And I think there's some upside there. So yeah, I'm pretty into the 49ers. I'm not into any of the Cardinals, and I'm not playing Michael Carter, even if there's a fire. So yeah, I like the 49ers here.
Well, two things. If you want some fun football to go back and watch Ricky Pearsall last week, man. He's an absolute star in the making. I want to jam Pearsall this week, and I especially want to jam Juwan Jennings. Is going to get up to 20 to 25% ownership because he's 5,800. They're down Deebo. Everybody's going to go down that line of reasoning.
Yeah,
Pearsall looks like an absolute stud, and he's 4,100. And last week, I had the first retarget share pulled up. Shanahan came out and designed the offense around him. I want pieces of that. Juwan Jennings had a nice run. We want to play rookies late in the year. I'm jamming Pearsall. I think Pearsall will be on all of my teams on DK this week. And I'm with you. Michael Carter, man, let's talk through it. We got to have the Michael Carter debate, Jake, because he projects well, really well, They have no James Conner, no Trey Benson, no Amari DeMarcado. It's just DJ Dallas and him. But like, it's Michael Carter, and he's 35% owned, and like,
Yeah, dude.
I don't know. Talk. What's the bull case for Carter is just that he gets every single touch and target, and he stumbles into the end zone obviously once, but like, he has serious downside in the spot. Like, Kyler can run at the goal line as well. I don't know. What's your read on Michael Carter here, Jake?
Yeah, I mean, even at his price, he still probably needs 18 to 20 DK points to, put you in an okay spot. That said, 89% of backfield expected fantasy points last week after James Conner left week 17's game with about 11 minutes remaining in the second quarter. Jonathan Gannon said Carter would get a ton of carries. And, this is an Arizona team that otherwise is playing their starters. So they should be able to generate some offense here. It's definitely scary playing a guy like Carter into ownership, but at the same time, something that Scott Barrett has pointed out historically is that these backup running backs who step into these bell cow roles are oftentimes the best chalk that we have. There are certainly holes you can poke in Michael Carter. HiLow, I'm curious, what is your downside case for Carter? Why do you want to stay away, even if there's a fire?
The Cardinals suck.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. But
That's
seriously, look at let's look at what James Conner did. I mean, if we say like, is Michael Carter 70% James Conner? We'll just throw a number out there. So if he is 70% James Conner, how many viable games did James Conner have this season? He put up 22.4 against the Rams in week 2. He put up 21.3 against the Commanders in week 4. 20.2 against the Chargers in week 7, 22.3. So we're at 4 games of 20 plus. 22.2, that's 5, 33.8. This is the first game, which was against the Patriots, where he saw only 16 carries and scored twice, but saw 5 targets. He put up 33.8, followed that up against the Panthers and put up 29.6. So he's gone over 20 fantasy points 7 times this season. GPP viable score only twice. So if we say Michael Carter's 70% of that, even what is the upside? So if you play Michael Carter at his almost bare minimum salary, you are saying he is going to outperform every other wide receiver in his range, and 2, going to put up enough of a point per dollar upside game to keep you on track to offset all of the cheap quarterbacks that are priced around him, all of the cheap wide receivers, all of it's just unlikely to happen. So I'm okay saying like, if Michael Carter beats me, puts up 30 points out of nowhere, like I just lose. Like that's okay.
The thing is I mean, DJ Dallas is like not a 0 in the passing game either. I mean, I'm not sure that I'm not sure that Michael Carter's the bell cow we all are kind of projecting him to be. I think he definitely has the early down role, but like DJ Dallas will play in the passing game. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and that's what's different when you look at the snap split after somebody gets hurt, because it's very different when you've had a week to prepare and now you know what your personnel is going in.
Exactly right. I do feel confident in Isaac Guerendo getting basically every meaningful backfield touch this week. They hate Patrick Taylor. He also stinks. But no Debo. It's just, man, I mean, I don't know if I really want to play Isaac Guerendo at 5,900 attached to Josh Dobbs, but he is interesting in terms of just the workload.
He gives you great leverage on this game too. Kyler's going to be popular. Dobbs is going to be popular. If Guerendo scores 3 touchdowns, I mean, man, you're in a really good spot. Guerendo plus 49ers defense is something I'm gonna force in a handful of my teams.
Like that. Yeah, I like that a lot. You just say Cardinals completely tanking this game too.
Yeah.
Trey McBride 6,500. He finally got his touchdown last week, HiLow.
Yay.
He was thrilled with it after burning everybody in week 16. He's going to be pretty popular at the top. Straight up, I prefer Bowers. Don't think that's
same.
Super controversial. All right, we'll get out of here with the last game of the week. Obviously, Broncos motivation is like the simplest on the board. Once again, 3rd straight week, win and they're in. Probably going to do it here. 10.5 point favorites. Chiefs are resting everybody. I mean, Mahomes won't play. Kelsey's out. No Chris Jones. He's beat up. No Trent McDuffie. They're going to send some starters on defense. The trickiest thing here, and I think maybe one of the most interesting spots on this slate, is Peyton Hendershot. Noah Gray probably sits here. I think at this point, he's too big of a part of their offense to play. Gray played a bunch in Week 18 last year. Don't think that's the case here. I don't know, man. Hilo, I've been wanting to ask you about Chiefs. Carson Steele's 4,700. I think he projects okay, but I think the bigger question is what to do with these Chiefs receivers. How do you see this playing out?
I plan on playing the Denver Broncos defense. That's how I see it playing. Nice. That's my short answer. Like the long answer is like we just don't know, man. Even with
Scott, if Scott were here, he would know. You know who he came for.
Yeah,
if Scott were here, he'd know.
Like even when they have a full allotment of their normal starters, they're still rotating 4 or 5 guys through. So it's like, I don't know, man. Like I think we're like somebody's going to have to play. They're not going to have to like they have a lot of guys that they need to rest. So they only get the standard call-ups. They can only sign so many guys. So I would expect Xavier Worthy not to play. I would expect DeAndre Hopkins not to play. So that kind of leaves Justin Watson, Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquise Brown probably not going to play. So it's like Nicky Remigio. I don't know, dude. I have no idea. But I would expect Peyton Hendershot to be the primary tight end. Yeah. They could also elevate Anthony Ferkser if they wanted to. So I don't know. And I don't know if it's worth it against a Denver defense that is the most aggressive defense in the league that needs a win to secure their playoff hopes. I don't think we even need to go there. I don't.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. I had to ask because I think Chiefs are a little interesting. And Hendershot's, I mean, he's stone, man, and there's a chance he runs a route on all of the dropbacks just because they don't have any other dudes out there. But yeah, I definitely hear you. Broncos side, man, I want to play some Knicks and Sutton. They've got to win this game. Chiefs are not going to have Trent McDuffie. The rest of their corners stink. And Knicks can definitely get it done. I'm pretty interested to see what Knicks' ownership ends up being. Right now he's sub 10%. Jake, what do you think of this game, dude? What do you think of Broncos and Chiefs here?
Yeah, man. I mean, love Knicks, love Sutton. I think, those are right there as 2 of the best plays on the slate. I think, especially on a slate like this, where we have a lot of quarterbacks potentially not going all out, I really want to focus on the quarterbacks who I know are going to leave it all out on the field. And I think Bo Nix is obviously going to be one of those guys. And it's a great spot against a Kansas City team that isn't expected to play their starters here. On the Kansas City side, I mean, Peyton Hendershot, Nico Remigio, Justin Ross, if you're desperate, you need a value. I think all those guys are fine. The backfield here especially is a stay away for me. I had some interest sort of early in the week in Carson Steele, but seeing some Keontae Ingram get steamed a little bit, that makes it really tough. If it's a split in any capacity on an offense that we don't expect to score many points, it's a total dead spot for me. So yeah, I'm playing a little bit of these cheap Kansas City guys to fill out some rosters in like a 150 set. But other than that, just give me Knicks, give me Sutton.
Yeah, Knicks and Sutton, certainly highly correlated just in terms of motivation. Huge first 3 target share for Sutton, and Knicks obviously started running a little bit last week too, which was great to see. Give a little more upside. Obviously, must win game for the Broncos, guys. Great stuff, great season. Week 18 is always a lot of fun. This week especially feels wide open, so make sure you are keeping it tuned to the projections, making sure you're checking out our ownership projections before you set your lineups. Hey, Tyler, Happy New Year, man. Thanks for the kind super chat there, man. Hope you have a great week 18. Stick around. Jake and Ryan Heath will be live for the drafter party, ripping some underdog battle royale teams here in about 20 minutes. Make sure you're sticking around for that. And until then, see you guys at the top of the leaderboards. Good luck this week.
What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.